Welcome to History 2.5, his story 2.5. In 2.4 we talked about 4 being print, the book, how it connected the Bibles, our articulation, that all of human history and knowledge was brought to this point in time. And well, I didn't talk about it then, but I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I talked about it with the 3 democracy, and that is the D word, disintermediation, where the power of a connection of each individual to a single enterprise through technology is now at our hands, with the power of connection of ideas and truth and thought to every human on earth through technology is at our disposal now. I've envisioned the future of that, what lies beyond that, a confluence of convergence, one of the next big things, and then other next big thing, the next big thing in monetary standard, a future global currency and enterprise, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The point I'd like to make at the beginning of this is that when I first imagineered this, it became sort of clear. Well, in my mind, I tried to explain what's going on here. Why is such an obvious thing? Well, the thing is this. You can't create my vision without creating peace and justice on earth. And so we talked about before the context of that. He will rebuke many people and judge among the nations, for they will turn their swords into plowshares, and they will learn war no more, and will have peace and justice on earth. Well, you know, you really don't need anybody to come back and rebuke you. You've been rebuking yourselves. Just look on your TVs. Just look in your mirrors. You've been judging among your nations and yourselves. But here's the thing. Whether you're right or you're left, you're all wrong, because you're looking through the rear view, and you're looking without a context of the higher future order of things that we could create if we chose to create them together. Now, it's a grand vision, crossing a chasm way beyond. You look at Wall Street as like incremental steps of these companies buying these companies and these mergers and these bankruptcies. What I'm talking about is a restructuring of the entire planet global enterprise, buying out all the technology companies, buying out the global resources and putting them into our own bank, and buying out global scale companies. Anyway, when I say buying them out, buying them into a merged enterprise that is now owned by the people of the various nations. So if what we know as American enterprises starts coming into China, well, they're really Chinese enterprises because the Chinese have the stake and vice versa, and we work together in, well, a new enterprise structure. So let's talk about why this is important and what our current situation is. Now, I will just point out to this. I believe that what this is an intelligently designed game of God that we sort of like a beautiful lie, that we're all working together for the same planet. We're fighting each other, warring each other. We have tribes and what have you. But if we got together and created a single bank of us and a single enterprise, we could create virtual heaven on earth. We could, and I'll get to you how, we could endow every human on earth with eternal life. That's right. I'm offering real eternal life. Well, virtual real eternal life. Real eternal life, I can't promise that. But what if we could get to the point of virtual eternal life? Isn't that better than no eternal life? And if we can get to the point of getting closer to heaven and earth, isn't that better than what we have now, which actually I think I call and have called pound hell? You see, what if there is no hell other than that in which we live, and that our Bibles were describing our future for our own procreation? Because, as I said before, if we are made in the image of God, we are made as creators, and our best image is creation, right? That's why it ties to Atlas, but that's why it ties to angels. And so, See, in my vision, way back when, and I'll just explain it before I go on to why, it was, imagine if all the rich people in the world, who, by the way, when you do the math anyway, what do they do with all their billions, those dead pools of capital? They give them to charities, and, like many enterprises on Earth, they inefficiently try to deliver them to people. Your whole planet is totally inefficient if you looked at it on a global scale. In fact, this is where it really gets weird. If you take and you say, listen, we're merging the technology companies of the planet, restructuring how we do IP. We're going to focus on the best technologies at tiers. And we're going to focus, well, and we're going to drive costs and standards and the best things at the best, fastest speed and in scale. And, well, what? And we're going to use common IT architectures and new networks and securities, and we're going to build like our own best cloud heaven and earth. Now, as we're doing that, well, we're restructuring the entire enterprise of the planet, and everything we do, from politics and governments, we replace them with enterprises. Instead of money, we use virtual money and cards or phones and what have you. But anyway, so why must we do this? Well, what are you living in right now? You're living in lots of uncertainty, and, well, the rich are feeling comfortable, but they're not comfortable, and the poor are feeling uncomfortable and getting more uncomfortable, and the middle class, well, they're more becoming poor, and, well, it's a problem. And why is that problem? Well, it's a whole classic debt problem, and I won't talk to you about the debts coming due and how that might resonate to Islam. And I'm not trying to press one or two of the religious buttons. I think it's really a pressing of all. But anyway, let's get off religion to the point of what you have in your world. You have worlds of extracting nations, resources, and the poor getting a little bit out of that extraction. And those going to producing nations now, which once was America and Europe, and now it's China, once was Japan, and now it is even, like, now it's China, and like India. Anyway, then you have consuming nations, but those consuming nations needed to build their consumption on debt. How could they consume? Well, we had two virtual reserve currencies on Earth, and when you have a reserve currency, you almost get the power to print until you lose the illusion of what you think you have. And you see, people are talking about who owns the debt of these nations, like, well, let's take up at the United States. Who owns that debt? Well, they're saying the children many years from now. But guess what? When the debts come due and the people can't pay, the people that own the debt have nothing. And so the owning of the debt is owned by the people that own the debt. And if your nations fall, the debt's worth nothing, your rich are worth nothing. And so the paradigm is we're all in this together. And that's where my trickle-down economics comes from. It's a pyramid. You must start from the bottom up and then trickle down. And when we take that paradigm and start to apply it with a broader view of true economics and an enterprise dedicated to total customer satisfaction. Well, when I say an enterprise, imagine all of the things if you think of out as enterprise, the technology enterprises, the media enterprises. We're going to get quickly to that. And well, your Boeings and your Caterpillars and all of the global enterprises. And not all of the businesses down to everything. No, but the global scale enterprises that are global in scope and nature are tied to our global resources anyway, and to our bank. And, well, our nations become like enterprises within our enterprise, and we build out their infrastructure, and we finance it through our global bank, which is a single reserve currency backed by all the resources on Earth. allow us to potentially print infinite capital. Because, see, we're living in a pyramid scheme of people. And if we can build more people and keep them housed and give them prosperity, we build a pyramid scheme. And, well, the people in 1,000 years can figure out how to pay for the heaven we build for them. What about that? Think about that. Do the higher law order math, as I said long ago. So, now what happens about this, and what does this mean? This, well, see, this is not just a made-up crazy man. Well, it may be. That's your paradigm. That could be. But what this is, as I articulated 7 years ago, the history of the future of us. Actually, I called it then his greatest story ever told, Badu. What if this truly is when your reality becomes the biggest movie of all time? Imagine a movie 1,000,000,000 times. All movies ever created. How could you create such a movie? Because every piece of content you've ever created is now bit parts in a grander scale movie. And every piece of content of reality is now a primary picture of our reality movie. And in the movie I imagineered in 2005, I put in charge, if you want, for Steve Jobs. And in my movie, he's still behind the scenes as CEO, imagining the future of Earth. Well, and Bill Gates rolling up charity. And of course, he's working with Warren Buffett. I call him Warren Buffet. And the Google guys. And they are connected to all the rest, Larry Ellison, and, well, I don't want to name all the names, they know their names. See, the idea wasn't to name just a few, but to just name some angels, to name all the greats, to name all them all, but to create a conspiracy of us. And in Hollywood, my first two names, of many, were, well, Spielberg and Cameraman, and then Lucas and Gibson. But that was the beginning of all, because it was the movie of all of us. And so everybody was immediately in the movie. Now all of a sudden, imagine your world is a movie, and your life is a movie. That's how you get eternal life. And so that gets interesting, because if I can deliver iPhones with the cameras around, and you can deliver and capture your reality in a movie, and we can travel across our virtual reality movie I've described as confluence and convergence, well, everything changes. We can imagine anything we might want, and, well, what cannot we build? You see, we have our own bank. We have a bank backed by the resources of Earth. And we can let some of those resources rise in prices. Why? Well, the thing is, we need to take a global scale picture, global warming, and, well, let's take the situation of oil. So what if the price of oil goes up? It moves us to alternative fuels. And, well, in America we have great alternatives, but no will to move to our heavy gas reserves. And that could be cleaner. And, well, coal is dirty right now. Maybe it could be clean in the future. Maybe there's transition issues we need to take into account. But if we looked at energy as a global scale problem, we could come up with better global scale solutions and decide to use pricing alternatives and say, listen, well, our bank owes the oil, so let's build its price up. Let's have our own monopoly on our reserves. And because what are we going to do when we graduate and say in 1,000 years, what are we going to do for plastics if we have no oil left? Well, see, if we start thinking beyond 10 years or 5 years, beyond 30-year mortgages, you start thinking in 50 and 100 years, you'll start thinking in a new scale of mind and reality. Have you ever think of a movie that long? of even a year-long movie, let alone a movie of 100 years? That's a pretty big movie to sell. Or should it be free?